2022 has been filled with tons of good releases. Ghostwire Tokyo is not one of them. This game is so boring. And it sucks saying that because this was probably the game I was looking forward most to this year. Why is it the games I look forward to the most always disappoint? First it was Death Stranding, then Resident Evil 8, then Neo The World Ends With You. Now this. Why do I get excited for the worst games? Oh yeah, because I'm shallow and make most of my game purchases off of what simply looks cool. And if there's nothing I can take away from Ghostwire Tokyo, it's how visually and conceptually interesting it is. Trailers of this game gave me BioShock vibes, but set in Japan. However, that is just a cruel disguise for the tedium that awaited me. What really is Ghostwire Tokyo, and why does it make me want to take a nap? Well, it's an open world game of the worst variety. Set in Tokyo where some bad guy cosplaying his favorite anime villain does a big vape and makes everyone disappear. Where did they go? I don't know, but losers left their clothes, so joke's on them, because when they get where they're going, things are gonna get really awkward. Unless they all went to an orgy. Then the joke's on me, because now I'm the odd one out. I could be getting buck wild with a bunch of naked Japanese people right now, but no, instead I'm alone in Tokyo, doing collectathons and fighting ghosts. You play as Akiba, a high schooler, I think, on his way to visit his sister in the hospital when he dies and gets possessed by a detective who is one case sure away from being named after the world's worst clan. You two form a bond and use the power of friendship to fight back the darkness and prevent the opening of Kingdom Hearts. Ah shit, wrong game. Seriously though, all you need to know about it is that it's an open world game. You will fly through Tokyo like Aladdin and pet doggos. You will do side quests, random events, and drive yourself insane looking for the collectibles and the thousands of souls scattered across the map. 240,300 to be exact. God, why have you forsaken thee? I have a love-hate relationship with open world games. At their best, I can get lost for hours, either exploring, messing around in the world, or hell, even doing the side content if it's good enough. At their worst, I'm left there wondering what the hell I'm even doing with my life. What constitutes a good open world design is of course partly subjective. With that said, for me, I'm just looking for the game to justify its world. If you can't justify being an open world beyond let's just have an open space with things in it to do, why should I spend time in it? Now this can be done a number of ways, like fun movement mechanics that make traveling long distances addicting. Alternatively, you can make a sandbox giving people a playground for player expression and organic interactions. Or lastly, just have the content compelling enough to make the player want to see what's next. Main point is, you have to give me a reason to spend time in your world beyond just the obligation of grinding out levels for upgrades before I continue the story. This is Ghostwire Tokyo's biggest flaw as an open world game. There's nothing worth doing for the sake of doing it. This is not an open world game where you're gonna spend time in it because the game entices you to see what it has to offer or what you can do within it. It's a space for vapid bullshit until you feel good enough to play the main story. Every side quest is the same. Go talk to a ghost that they didn't even bother to animate in the slightest. Go kill something. Go back, talk to ghost. That's it. It's fetch quests of the worst kind. The gear and the skill tree upgrades are honestly pathetic, so there's not even that much of an incentive to grind levels and maximize your character's potential. I can speak English, because I am English-speaking person. The only upgrades you can find are like charms that slightly boost your attack damage, and yeah, you can level up these charms the more of them you get. And I mean, I didn't spend that much time collecting them, so maybe you can upgrade them to a significant degree, but that would involve playing more of this completely boring open world game, and nope, I'd rather have all my skin burnt off with a belt sander. Like, just get a nice powerful electric belt sander, put it in my face, and let it rip, baby. End me, please! There are shops, but they only have one real purpose, and that's buying the paper dolls to collect more souls. So you aren't running back to the phone every 3 minutes like some paranoid schizophrenic expecting a phone call. Other than that, you can restock some ammunitions, and that can be helpful. But you will easily find yourself ignoring these shops before long. There are costumes you can get, but they are far and few between, and honestly, in my opinion, not that cool. Completely subjective opinion, so let's move on. I do appreciate that they show up in cutscenes though, I'll say that much. For Traversal, you can float through the city, which is kind of fun if not for the fact that it reminds me of Infamous. But beyond that, and using Tengus to pull yourself up buildings, your movement options are very limited and only serve the functions of letting you building hop at best. Hardly a compelling enough travel mechanic to make me want to spend time just going back and forth to the different locations in the world. In many ways, it just feels thrown in because it was an open world game and not because they had any greater use for these mechanics, because most of the main levels happen in more closed off areas anyways where you can't use these travel mechanics. The lackluster content, weak traversal, and meaningless interactions with the world make this one of the most pointless game worlds I have ever spent time in. And yes, I get the irony that saying a game in which everyone but the main character turned into a ghost and just dipped is empty, but keep in mind, Death Stranding, for as much as I hate that game, which is a lot, even though it was empty, it still justified its world through its gameplay loop. I mean, half of Death Stranding's mechanics wouldn't work if the game wasn't an open world delivery simulator. And hell, those are the half of the mechanics that do work. Point is when all there is to do is fight enemies and you have weak justifications to make me want to do that a million times over and over again, and all the main levels don't take place within the open world, and you could literally remove the open world and the game would hardly change outside of you having a lot less content, which I see in this case as a good thing as the content's not that compelling. What's the point of your open world? That's the question I asked myself the whole playthrough. And when I couldn't come up with an answer, I decided to just not engage with the open world and burn through the main content. About the only value I can find in this open world is as an up-close tour of Shibuya, Tokyo, which, to give credit where it is due, is extremely detailed and feels like it could be an actual one-to-one recreation. I wouldn't know, never been, though it was cool to see the 109 building up close. Still though, what do I get out of walking around the empty streets of Shibuya, Tokyo? Cool, I get to see all the buildings, but experience none of the culture. At that point, I could just go on Google Maps. Look, I'm currently giving you the best part of Ghostwire Tokyo's open world for free. You are welcome. But man, Ghostwire Tokyo's problems lie so much deeper than a honestly repetitive open world. Because even if the open world was removed, the game wouldn't be that much better. The main gameplay mechanics aren't very enjoyable on their own. Game feels like it's going through an identity crisis, especially where combat is concerned. It has the same problem as Resident Evil 8, but even worse. It's a game that tries to walk the line between action and horror and fails both. As a horror, it's not very tense because the enemies aren't very threatening outside of one flying enemy that's an absolute pain in the fucking ass. They all move slowly and telegraph the hell out of their attacks, and sure, you don't move particularly fast either, but it's not hard to keep your distance. Also, you have a parry in this game, so you can essentially block anything that comes your way. But that's not even the main reason why this game's not very scary or tense. Resources are way too abundant for there to be any tension, like at all. There's usually tons of objects in the environment you can break for ammo, because that's how you get ammo in this game. Also, there's a skill in your skill tree that allows you to get ammo for meleeing enemies, so it's not hard to replenish ammo. Now, that's not to say that you can't run out of ammo, but that happens more because enemies are tanky. And draining my resources through tanky enemies is not the same as creating tension through limited resources and forcing me into fight or flight scenarios. If you could just run away around a corner and refill ammo, there's no tension. Even worse, if I'm being forced to do that every fight, you turn combat into an annoying game of, "Oh, I'll be right back, Mr. Ghost Dude. It would appear you're still not dead after unloading into you and your friends with literally everything I had." Yes, there are statues in the open world that you can use to upgrade your ammo one shot at a time, but all that means is that they arbitrarily limited your ammo pool or made the enemies tougher than they needed to be to force you into the shallow open world. Oh great, showing another reason why the open world doesn't really help this game's design. You don't feel weak because of a lack of understanding with the gameplay and your abilities. You are weak because the game decides you are until you grind out enough of its empty world. But then on the other end of the spectrum, the combat is not deep enough to be a fun action game. You have 3 main attacks and they all feel pathetic. Well, okay, not so much the fire one as it's your most powerful attack, but the other 2 feel completely useless. Partly because there's little to no feedback when landing a hit on enemies, and also because of how spongy they are. Also, these spells barely evolve as you go through the game. You can do a charge shot with most of them, but that's about it. The wind one lets you charge up to 3 shots, which is kind of cool, but all that means is that you're going to be circles strafing the area a lot, taking pot shots after every charge. You can increase the radius of the fire charge shot, which I recommend as it's one of the only truly useful upgrades in this game. Other options outside of your main weapons are a bow, you know, for a completely arbitrary and bare bones stealth mechanic. My favorite! Especially when they force you into the stealth by taking away all your magic at certain points in the game. And outside of stealth, the arrows aren't very effective, so it's not really a combat weapon. It's a stealth tool, and purely a stealth tool. One that you won't even be using often because of a lack of consistent ammo for this weapon. Specifically this weapon. It's not hard to find ammo for all your spells, but for the bow, good luck, dipshit. Your melee is pathetic and not even worth using outside of getting that skill that gives you some ammo back when you use it. And then you have trap scrolls, which can be very effective, I'm not gonna lie, but are very hard to find naturally and cost an arm and a leg to get at the shops. So you want to use them sparingly, mostly on the bigger enemies, and you're mostly just going to use it to do damage and make the fights go by faster, because the combat's not very fun. It's a very, very basic set of tools, which in and of itself isn't the problem, but the lack of meaningful enemy challenge or push to have you balance out the use of all these mechanics means that gameplay just feels flat. You know, it's not even like the mix of action and horror can't work. Some of my favorite games are exactly that. But usually there's emphasis on one element over the other. So like Resident Evil 4, for example. It's mostly an action game with horror elements. While on the flip side of that, Dead Space is a horror game with action elements. Both games have elements of both, but both choose to give one of those areas the spotlight while using the elements of the other to enhance it. The only game I think gets the closest to doing an equal balance of horror and action is the first BioShock game. But whereas BioShock walks a balance of making you feel powerful and powerless at the same time, Ghostwire does neither. I feel neither powerless or powerful. Just bored. I'm just fucking bored. No ill will towards the developers, truly. It's just a game, and making games isn't easy. Hell, I've never done it. A lot of work clearly went into this game, and devs probably worked their... No. Devs definitely worked their asses off. Not probably. Get out of here with that shit. I don't make a rant like this because I'm trying to shame the developers for making a lazy product, because I don't think that's what happened here. I make this to illustrate the feelings that came with playing this game, which were a mix of boredom, frustration, exhaustion, and the main one, disappointment. Disappointment that such a cool concept and possibly even story got wasted on such an empty premise of an open world game. Disappointed because I enjoy games that mix action and horror together, but I couldn't get into this one. But disappointed because I think the studio behind this game is fantastic, and with more focus behind a solid gameplay concept, it could have been great. At least on some level, this game could have been great. No, but seriously, I do hope they make another open world game, and I hope they put more thought into what an open world game should be, so they don't just make another big open space full of nothing. I think they should have looked at all the mechanics in this game and thought about what purpose they serve, because Ghostwire Tokyo's biggest problem is one of not knowing, truly not knowing what it wanted to be. And hence you get a game where none of the mechanics are good enough to stand on their own, nor do they come together to make something that is greater than the sum of their parts. As I said earlier, tons of great games have already come out this year, so spend time playing those and just skip Ghostwire. For now at least. If you really want to try it, wait till it goes on sale, and I mean like a good sale too, like at least more than half off. Otherwise you are overpaying for this game. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, you know, all the good stuff that helps a small channel like this grow. Seriously, I need it. No pressure though. Check out some of my other content while you're at it. I got seafood tip videos, I got reviews, I got random memes. What's there not to like? Anyways, I'm gonna go play in traffic now. I'll see you all later. Bye.
Use the directional throw the game teaches you in the tutorial to throw an enemy into the wall. As soon as they bounce back, follow up with a palm strike to hit them into the wall again. Barlow Wayne, a man with severe brain damage, who failed to stop a giant dragon that's destroying the earth, and goes on a journey in hope.